Mafia boss orders a drink. Shy waitress secretly hands him a note and saves his life. Welcome to this intense mafia romance story. If you're enjoying the dangerous chemistry between Vincent and Emma, please hit the like button and leave a comment below telling us what you think will happen next. Your support helps us create more stories like this. Now, let's dive into a world where love and danger collide. The rain hammered against the windows of Rossi's cafe like bullets against bulletproof glass. Inside, the warm glow of Edison bulbs cast amber shadows across marble tables where Chicago's elite sipped overpriced espresso and pretended not to notice the man in the corner booth. But everyone noticed him. Vincent Moretti didn't walk into rooms. He dominated them. At 36, he'd built an empire that stretched from the waterfront docks to the glittering penthouses of Gold Coast. His name made hardened criminals cross the street. Politicians returned his calls within minutes. The FBI had an entire task force dedicated to him, though they'd never made anything stick. He sat alone in his usual corner, a position that allowed him to see every entrance, every exit, every potential threat. His black suit was tailored to perfection, the kind of craftsmanship that cost more than most people's monthly rent. A gold Patek Philippe watch gleamed at his wrist, the only flash of wealth he allowed himself in public. His dark hair was styled back with precision, and the shadow of stubble on his jaw gave him an edge that made women stare and men look away. 2 bodyguards flanked the entrance, their hands never far from their jackets. Another watched from a sedan outside, engine running. Vincent Moretti didn't take chances. He'd ordered a simple black coffee 30 minutes ago. The cafe manager had personally assured him it would be ready immediately, stammering through the promise with sweat beading on his forehead. But the coffee hadn't arrived, and Vincent was beginning to lose patience. His phone buzzed. A text from his underboss. The Castellano situation is handled. They won't be a problem anymore. Vincent's expression didn't change as he deleted the message. In his world, problems had permanent solutions, and the Castellano family had made the mistake of challenging his territory. They'd learn what happened to people who crossed the Moretti organization, if they lived long enough to remember. Movement caught his eye. A young woman emerged from the kitchen, carrying a single cup of coffee on a silver tray. Her hands trembled so violently that the cup rattled against the saucer, the sound cutting through the ambient jazz music. She couldn't have been more than 25. Blonde hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, delicate features that belonged in a painting rather than a cafe that serviced men like him. She wore the standard uniform, black slacks, white button-down shirt, and the cafe's signature red apron tied at her waist. But unlike the other servers who moved with practiced efficiency, she looked terrified. Smart girl, Vincent thought. Fear meant respect. Respect meant survival. She approached his table with the careful steps of someone walking through a minefield. Her blue eyes were fixed on the coffee cup as if it held the secrets of the universe. When she finally reached him, she set the tray down with such care that not a single drop spilled. "Your coffee, sir," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the background noise. Vincent didn't respond immediately. He had a habit of letting silence do the work for him, watching how people reacted when confronted with the weight of his presence. Most people couldn't handle it. They filled the void with nervous chatter or apologies or excuses. But this girl, this terrified, trembling girl, did something unexpected. She placed a folded napkin beside his cup, her fingers lingering on it for just a fraction of a second. Then she met his eyes, and in that brief moment, Vincent saw something that caught him completely off guard. Desperation. Not the kind of desperation that came from fear of him. Something deeper. Something that looked like a drowning person reaching for a lifeline. "Is there anything else, sir?" she asked, her voice steadier this time. Vincent's gaze dropped to the napkin. It was folded with deliberate care, the edges aligned perfectly. Too perfect to be accidental. "What's your name?" he asked, his voice low and commanding. "Emma, sir. Emma Collins." "How long have you worked here, Emma?" 3 months. She swallowed hard. "I'm still learning the ropes." Vincent picked up the coffee cup, ignoring the napkin for now. He took a slow sip, his eyes never leaving her face. The coffee was perfect, rich, dark, exactly the right temperature. This girl knew what she was doing, despite her trembling hands. "You can go," he said. Relief flooded her features, but something else flickered there too. Disappointment? Urgency? Before he could analyze it further, she turned and walked back toward the kitchen, her pace just a bit too quick to be casual. Vincent waited until she disappeared through the swinging doors before reaching for the napkin. His bodyguards hadn't noticed the exchange. They were too focused on potential external threats to worry about a scared waitress. He unfolded the napkin beneath the table, keeping his movements subtle. Inside, written in small, rushed handwriting, were 6 words that made his blood run cold. "They're coming for you tonight. Run." Vincent's expression didn't change. Years of controlling his reactions in high-stakes situations had trained him to show nothing, feel nothing, reveal nothing. But inside, his mind was racing. Who was this girl? How did she know about a threat against him? And more importantly, why would she risk her life to warn him? He'd survived 36 years in a world where trust was currency and betrayal was common as breathing because he trusted no one. Information was power, and someone had just handed him a piece of intelligence that could either save his life or lead him into a trap. Vincent folded the napkin and slipped it into his jacket pocket. He pulled out his phone and sent a quick text to his head of security. "Increase perimeter. Possible threat tonight. Code red." Then he did something he rarely did. He got up and walked toward the kitchen. His bodyguards immediately tensed, hands moving inside their jackets. Vincent held up a hand, signaling them to stand down, and pushed through the swinging door marked, "Staff only." The kitchen was chaos, steam and noise, cooks shouting orders, pans sizzling, knives striking cutting boards in rhythmic precision. The entire staff froze when they saw him, terror replacing their busy efficiency. All except Emma. She stood near the industrial sink, her back to him, shoulders rigid with tension. She knew he was there. He could tell by the way she'd gone completely still, like a rabbit sensing a wolf. "Outside," Vincent said quietly. "Now." She turned slowly, her blue eyes wide with something that looked like acceptance. Like she'd known this moment was coming, and had made peace with whatever happened next. The kitchen manager started forward. "Sir, I apologize if there was—" "Not your concern." Vincent cut him off with a look that made the man step back immediately. Emma untied her apron with steady hands, steadier than they'd been when she'd served his coffee, and walked toward the back exit. Vincent followed, his presence clearing a path through the kitchen staff like Moses parting the Red Sea. The alley behind the cafe was dark and wet, rain still falling in sheets. Emma stood in the shelter of the awning, arms wrapped around herself against the cold. Vincent's bodyguards had followed them out, positioning themselves at both ends of the alley. "Talk," Vincent commanded. Emma looked up at him, and in the harsh light of the single bulb above the door, he could see she was even younger than he'd thought. 25 at most, maybe younger. Her hands were rough from work, nails short and unpolished. This wasn't some spoiled socialite playing at poverty. This was a girl who knew what hard work meant. "My brother," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "Tommy Collins. He works for the Castellanos. Worked for them. They found out he's been talking to someone. I don't know who. But they're planning to send a message tonight by taking out the man they think he's been feeding information to. And you think that's me? I know it's you. I heard them talking at the bar where I work my second job. They didn't know I was Tommy's sister. I use my mother's maiden name there. They said they were going to hit Vincent Moretti at his usual spot tonight. This cafe." Vincent studied her carefully, looking for any sign of deception. But all he saw was raw, honest terror. Not for herself, but for someone else. "Why warn me? If your brother is compromised, helping me puts him in more danger." Emma's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back fiercely. "Because Tommy's not a bad person. He got in over his head, made stupid choices, but he's not like them. And if they kill you, they'll know someone warned you. They'll figure out it was him somehow. But if you know they're coming, maybe you can stop them. Maybe Tommy has a chance. The rain intensified, drowning out the distant sounds of traffic. Vincent looked at this brave, foolish girl who'd just gambled everything on a stranger's mercy and felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Respect. What's your brother's last known location? Hope flared in Emma's eyes. The old brewery on Ashland. They're keeping him there until after tonight. Vincent pulled out his phone and sent a rapid series of texts. Within seconds, his organization would be mobilizing. The Castellano family was about to learn that you didn't ambush Vincent Moretti. You barely survived him noticing your existence. Go home, Emma Collins, he said, his voice softer than before. Don't come to work tomorrow. Don't go to your other job. Stay inside until you hear from me. How will I? You'll hear from me, he repeated, the command in his voice absolute. Emma nodded, then turned to leave, but she paused at the edge of the alley, looking back at him through the rain. Thank you, she whispered. Vincent watched her disappear into the Chicago night, her red apron a splash of color in the gray urban landscape. He stood there for a long moment, rain beginning to soak through his expensive suit, thinking about a girl brave enough to walk into a lion's den with nothing but a napkin and a prayer. His phone buzzed. His security chief. Teams moving. Brewery secured. One male hostage recovered. Situation contained. Another text followed immediately. Castellano hit team intercepted. They won't be trying again. Vincent smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Just cold satisfaction. He'd dealt with the immediate threat. But something told him that Emma Collins, the terrified waitress with hands that shook but courage that didn't, was about to become a complication he hadn't planned for. And Vincent Moretti hated complications almost as much as he hated being ambushed. Almost. 3 days later, Emma stood in her cramped studio apartment, staring at the bouquet of white roses that had appeared on her doorstep that morning. No card, no note. Just 24 perfect blooms that probably cost more than her monthly rent. She knew who they were from. Tommy was alive. That's all that mattered. He'd shown up at her door 2 nights ago, bruised and shaken but breathing. He'd told her everything. How Vincent Moretti's men had extracted him from the brewery minutes before the Castellanos would have made him disappear permanently. How he'd been given a choice. Leave Chicago with enough money to start over somewhere else, or stay and face the consequences of betraying a criminal organization. He'd chosen to leave. He was in Arizona now, working construction and living under a new name. Safe. Emma should have been relieved. She should have moved on. Gone back to her 2 jobs and her quiet life of survival. But every time she closed her eyes, she saw Vincent Moretti standing in that rain-soaked alley, looking at her like she was a puzzle he couldn't quite solve. A knock on her door made her jump. She checked the peephole and saw a man in an expensive suit. Not Vincent, one of his people. She recognized the type now, after years of serving them at the bar. The way they carried themselves, the constant awareness of their surroundings, the bulge of weapons hidden beneath tailored jackets. Emma opened the door with the chain still attached. Yes? Miss Collins, Mr. Moretti requests the pleasure of your company for dinner tonight. A car will arrive at 7. It wasn't a question. It was a summons. And if I say no? The man's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Amusement? Mr. Moretti doesn't hear no very often, miss, but he instructed me to tell you this isn't business. It's gratitude. You saved his life. He'd like to thank you properly. Emma's heart hammered against her ribs. Every instinct screamed at her to refuse, to close the door and pretend this chapter of her life was finished. But curiosity warred with fear, and beneath both was something more dangerous. Interest. Where? She asked. Luciano's. Private dining room. Security will be present, but discreet. Luciano's was the most exclusive restaurant in Chicago, the kind of place where reservations were made months in advance, and the waitlist included Fortune 500 CEOs and Hollywood celebrities. Emma had walked past it once, marveling at the elegant facade. "I don't have anything to wear to a place like that." The man handed her a sleek black box tied with silver ribbon. Mr. Moretti anticipated that concern. Before Emma could respond, he nodded respectfully and walked away, leaving her standing in her doorway holding a box that felt like Pandora's jar. She brought it inside and set it on her second-hand coffee table, staring at it like it might explode. Finally, curiosity won. She untied the ribbon and lifted the lid. Inside was a dress that made her breath catch. Deep emerald silk that shimmered in the afternoon light, elegant and sophisticated without being overly revealing. Beneath it were shoes, designer heels in her exact size, and a small velvet box containing diamond earrings that were definitely not costume jewelry. Emma's hands trembled as she lifted the dress. The fabric was so soft it felt like water between her fingers. The price tag had been removed, but she could guess it cost more than she made in 6 months. This was insane. She should return everything, text some polite refusal, go back to her normal life. But normal had never included roses on her doorstep or dresses that cost a fortune. Normal had never included a man who looked at her like she was the most fascinating thing in his dangerous world. At 6:30, Emma stood in front of her bathroom mirror and barely recognized herself. The dress fit perfectly, hugging her curves in ways that made her feel beautiful and terrified simultaneously. She'd done her makeup carefully, nothing too dramatic, just enough to enhance her features. Her blonde hair fell in soft waves around her shoulders. She looked like she belonged in Vincent Moretti's world. The realization should have scared her more than it did. The car arrived exactly at 7, a black Mercedes with tinted windows and a driver who opened the door without a word. Emma slid into the leather interior, her heart racing as they pulled away from her modest neighborhood and headed toward downtown Chicago. Luciano's was even more impressive inside than out. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across marble floors. Oil paintings that probably belonged in museums adorned the walls. The maitre d' took one look at Emma and immediately led her through the main dining room, where she caught glimpses of faces she recognized from television, and up a sweeping staircase to the second floor. He opened a door to reveal a private dining room that took her breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Chicago skyline, the city lights glittering like earthbound stars. A single table was set for 2, candles flickering in the dim light. And standing by the window, looking out at his city like a king surveying his kingdom, was Vincent Moretti. He turned when she entered, and Emma's heart stopped. He wore a black suit that was somehow even more perfectly tailored than the one from the cafe. His dark hair was styled back, and in the candlelight, the sharp angles of his face looked almost artistic. But it was his eyes that held her, dark, intense, and focused entirely on her. "Emma," he said, her name sounding different in his deep voice. "You look stunning." "Thank you for the dress," she managed, suddenly feeling like a girl playing dress-up. "You didn't have to." "I wanted to." He moved toward her with the fluid grace of a predator, stopping just close enough to be intimate without being threatening. "You saved my life." A dress seemed like a small gesture in comparison. The maitre d' discreetly withdrew, closing the door behind him. Emma was alone with the most dangerous man in Chicago, wearing a dress he'd bought her, in a room that felt like it existed outside the normal world. "Please, sit," Vincent said, pulling out her chair. Emma sat, hyper-aware of how close he was, the subtle scent of his cologne, something expensive and masculine that made her pulse quicken. He took the seat across from her, and for a moment, they simply looked at each other. "Why am I here?" Emma asked, needing to break the tension. "Really?" Vincent smiled, and it transformed his face from intimidating to devastatingly handsome. "Because I'm curious about you, Emma Collins. You're not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "Someone looking for a reward, money, protection, favors." He paused as a waiter appeared with wine, filling their glasses before vanishing again. Instead, you asked for nothing. You warned me, helped me save your brother, and then disappeared. No one does that in my world. Maybe I'm just not part of your world. No, Vincent agreed, his gaze intense. You're not. That's what makes you dangerous. Emma's breath caught. I'm not dangerous to you. You're more dangerous than any rival family, Emma, because you make me want things I gave up on years ago. The confession hung between them, heavy with implication. Emma picked up her wine glass just to have something to do with her hands. What kind of things? Vincent leaned back in his chair, studying her like she was a work of art he was considering purchasing. Normal things, quiet dinners without bodyguards, conversations that don't involve strategy or threats. Someone who looks at me and sees a man instead of a title. I don't know what I see when I look at you, Emma admitted honestly. You terrify me. But you also saved my brother without hesitation. You sent roses. You invited me to dinner instead of, I don't know, having your people drag me to some warehouse for interrogation. Vincent's laugh was genuine, and the sound made Emma's chest tighten. You've been watching too many movies. I don't conduct interrogations in warehouses. Where do you conduct them? Nowhere you'll ever have to worry about. His expression turned serious. I need you to understand something, Emma. I'm not a good man. The things I've done, the empire I've built, it's constructed on fear and power and choices that would horrify someone like you. People have suffered because of me. Families have been destroyed because they challenged my territory. I'm telling you this because you deserve to know who you're having dinner with. Emma set down her wine glass. Why are you telling me this? Because despite every logical reason not to, I want to see you again. And that can't happen unless you understand what being in my life means. The waiter reappeared with their first course, something elegant and French that Emma couldn't have pronounced if her life depended on it. She waited until they were alone again before speaking. Tommy told me what you do. He told me about the organization, the territory, the wars between families. I'm not naive, Vincent. I know you're not some misunderstood businessman. And yet you're still here. I'm still here, Emma confirmed, surprising herself with how steady her voice was. I'm still trying to figure out why. Vincent reached across the table, his hand hovering near hers but not quite touching. Maybe because you're tired of being invisible. Working 2 jobs, barely surviving, watching life happen to other people while you just try to make rent. Maybe because for one night, you want to feel special. His words hit too close to home. Emma looked away, blinking back the sudden sting of tears. You don't know anything about me. I know more than you think. Vincent's voice was gentle now, lacking its usual commanding edge. I had my people look into you after that night. Not because I didn't trust you, because I needed to understand who would risk everything for a stranger. Emma Collins, 25 years old, graduated community college with honors while working full-time. Turned down a scholarship to a prestigious university to take care of Tommy after your parents died in a car accident 8 years ago. You've been supporting both of you ever since, working yourself to exhaustion while he made one bad choice after another. Emma's hands clenched in her lap. You had no right. I had every right, Vincent interrupted, but his tone remained soft. In my world, information is survival, but what I learned didn't make me suspicious. It made me respect you even more. You're stronger than half the men who work for me, Emma. You've sacrificed everything for family. That kind of loyalty is rare. Sacred, even. Then you understand why I can't be part of your world, Emma said, meeting his eyes. Because the same loyalty that made me save you would make me try to change you. And you said it yourself. You're not a good man. I can't be with someone who hurts people. I would never hurt you. Maybe not directly, but your world would. Being with you would mean living in constant fear, watching over my shoulder, wondering if today's the day a rival family decides to send a message by going after the people you care about. Emma's voice cracked slightly. I've already lost too many people I love, Vincent. I can't lose anyone else. Silence fell between them, broken only by the ambient noise of the city below. Vincent withdrew his hand, and Emma immediately missed the almost touch, which was ridiculous and dangerous and completely foolish. "You're right," Vincent finally said. "Everything you're saying is logical and smart and exactly what you should think. But logic doesn't explain why I can't stop thinking about you. Why I sent roses hoping you'd know they were from me. Why I'm sitting here having the most honest conversation I've had in years with someone who should run screaming in the opposite direction." Emma's heart hammered. "Vincent, I'm not asking you to be my girlfriend or make any commitments," he continued, his dark eyes locked on hers. "I'm asking for a chance. Dinners like this, conversations. Time to see if what I'm feeling is real or just fascination with someone who doesn't want anything from me. And what happens when you get bored? When the novelty wears off." Vincent's smile was sad. "I don't think that's possible with you, Emma. But if it happens, I'll let you walk away with enough money to never work 2 jobs again. I'll make sure you're protected, safe, taken care of. I don't want your money. I know, that's why I'm offering it." The waiter returned with their main course, and Emma was grateful for the interruption. She needed time to think, to process what Vincent was offering. It was insane, dangerous, everything she should refuse. But God help her, she didn't want to refuse. They ate in comfortable silence, stealing glances at each other between bites. The food was exquisite, the kind of culinary experience Emma had only read about, but she barely tasted it. All her senses were focused on the man across from her, the way candlelight played across his features, the occasional glimpse of vulnerability beneath his controlled exterior. "Tell me about your family," Emma said eventually. "You know everything about mine." Vincent's expression shuddered slightly. "My family is complicated. I'm not asking about your organization. I'm asking about the people who raised you. What made you who you are?" He was quiet for so long Emma thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "My father was the Don before me. He built the Moretti Empire from nothing, came to America with barely enough money for a meal and turned it into what it is today. He was brilliant, ruthless, and utterly devoted to family. He taught me that loyalty was everything, that weakness was death, that mercy was a luxury we couldn't afford. Was he a good father? He was a complicated father. He loved me in his way, but his way involved preparing me to survive in a world where kindness gets you killed." Vincent's jaw tightened. "He died when I was 28. Heart attack during a meeting with another family. They thought it was a sign of weakness, tried to move on our territory. I had to prove I was stronger than my father, more ruthless, more willing to do whatever it took to maintain control." "Did you?" Vincent's eyes met hers, and Emma saw ancient pain there. "Yes. I did things that would keep you awake at night, things I'll carry with me forever. But I kept my family safe. I kept our territory intact. And I built something even stronger than what my father left me. At what cost? My humanity, mostly." The honesty in his voice was devastating. "There's not much of the man I could have been left anymore, Emma. Just the man I had to become." Emma reached across the table and did something crazy. She placed her hand over his. Vincent stiffened, clearly not expecting the gesture, but he didn't pull away. "I don't believe that," she said softly. "The man who saved my brother without asking for anything in return. The man who sent roses instead of threats. The man who's being completely honest with me right now instead of manipulating me into compliance. That man is still in there." Vincent turned his hand over, his fingers intertwining with hers. His touch was warm, surprisingly gentle for hands that had probably done terrible things. "You see the best in people, don't you? Even when they don't deserve it. Tommy didn't deserve all the chances I gave him, but he's my brother. Family means seeing the best in people even when they're at their worst. Is that what you're doing with me? Seeing the best?" Emma considered the question carefully. "I'm trying to see all of you, not just the reputation or the power, the whole person. And what do you see?" She looked at him, really looked at him, Seeing past the expensive suit and the dangerous reputation, she saw a man who'd been forced into a role he never chose, who'd sacrificed pieces of himself to protect what his father built, who was reaching out for something normal and human and real with the desperation of someone drowning. "I see someone who's tired," Emma said honestly. "Someone who's lonely. Someone who wants to be seen as more than his title but doesn't know how." Vincent's grip on her hand tightened, and for a moment, Emma thought she saw moisture in his eyes. But he blinked and it was gone, replaced by his usual controlled expression. "You're dangerous," he said again. But this time it sounded like a compliment. They finished dinner talking about safer topics. Her favorite books, his love of architecture, her dreams of traveling someday, his memories of Italy from childhood visits. The conversation flowed easily, naturally, like they'd known each other for years instead of days. When the meal ended, Vincent insisted on walking her to the car. They stood in the restaurant's private exit, the night air cool against Emma's skin. "Thank you for tonight," she said. "For the dress, the dinner, the honesty. Can I see you again?" Emma knew she should say no. Every logical part of her brain screamed that getting involved with Vincent Moretti was the worst decision she could possibly make. But standing there in the emerald dress he'd chosen for her, his dark eyes filled with hope and vulnerability, she couldn't make herself refuse. "Yes," she whispered. Vincent's smile was radiant. He lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles that sent electricity racing up her arm. "I'll call you tomorrow." "Vincent," Emma said as she reached the car door. He turned back, eyebrows raised. "For what it's worth, I think the man you could have been is still there. He just needs a reason to come back." She slipped into the car before she could see his reaction, but as they pulled away, she looked back through the rear window. Vincent stood in the doorway, illuminated by the restaurant's warm light, watching her leave with an expression she couldn't quite read. Emma pressed her hand to her racing heart and wondered what she'd just gotten herself into. For the next 2 weeks, Emma existed in 2 completely different worlds. By day, she worked her shifts at Rossi's cafe and the bar, smiling at customers and refilling coffee cups and pretending her life was exactly the same as it had always been. By night, she entered Vincent's world, intimate dinners at exclusive restaurants, private concerts at venues she'd only dreamed of visiting, late-night conversations that stretched until dawn. Vincent was careful. No public displays that would mark her as his. No obvious connections that would make her a target. They met in private spaces, protected by security that Emma barely noticed anymore. His people had become familiar faces. Marco, who drove her everywhere. Sophia, who appeared whenever Emma needed anything. Alessandro, whose job seemed to be ensuring her safety without being intrusive about it. She should have been terrified. Instead, she was falling. It happened slowly, like a sunset, so gradual you didn't notice until suddenly everything was transformed. Vincent showed her sides of himself that she suspected few people ever saw. The way he laughed at terrible jokes, his surprising knowledge of classic literature, the gentle way he touched her, a hand at the small of her back, fingers brushing her cheek, always asking permission with his eyes before taking liberties. They hadn't kissed yet. Emma knew Vincent was waiting for her to be ready, to be certain, but the tension between them was becoming unbearable. Tonight, they were at his penthouse, the first time she'd been to his private space. Emma stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at Chicago spread beneath them like a glittering map of all Vincent controlled. "Penny for your thoughts," Vincent said, handing her a glass of wine. Emma took it gratefully. "I was thinking about how different my view is from yours. From my apartment, I can see a parking lot and the back of a Chinese restaurant. From here, you can see the entire city." "The view is better with you in it," Vincent said, moving to stand beside her. Emma smiled despite herself. That was incredibly cheesy. "I'm allowed 1 cheesy line per evening. It's in my contract as a crime lord." His expression turned serious. "Emma, there's something I need to tell you." Her stomach tightened. "That sounds ominous." "The Santoro family is making moves. Nothing concrete yet, just posturing and territory testing. But it means security around me is going to get tighter for a while. I wanted you to hear it from me before you notice the extra precautions. Emma set down her wine glass. Is this what life with you is like? Constant threats and territory wars? Sometimes. My world has quiet periods and storm periods. Right now we're entering a storm. Vincent turned to face her fully. I need to know if you're okay with that. Because if you're not, if this is too much, I'll understand. I'll make sure you're protected and taken care of, but I'll let you walk away. Emma's heart ached at the vulnerability in his voice. 2 weeks ago, Vincent Moretti had been a terrifying stranger. Now, he was the man who texted her good morning every day, who remembered she liked her coffee with 2 sugars, who looked at her like she was the most precious thing in his dangerous world. I'm not going anywhere, Emma said, surprising herself with how certain she sounded. Relief flooded Vincent's features. You should be running. Probably. But I've never been good at doing the smart thing. She stepped closer, closing the distance between them. Vincent, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Always. Have you ever felt this way before? About anyone? Vincent was quiet for a long moment, his dark eyes searching her face. Once. A long time ago, before I took over from my father. Her name was Isabella. She was beautiful, intelligent, everything I thought I wanted. We were engaged. Emma's chest tightened with unexpected jealousy. What happened? She met the man I was becoming and couldn't handle it. The violence, the power, the compromises I had to make. She left 3 weeks before our wedding, and I don't blame her. She was smart enough to run when you're not. He cupped Emma's face gently. But what I felt for her was nothing compared to this. She wanted the version of me that didn't exist anymore. You see who I actually am and choose to stay anyway. Do you still love her? No. I barely remember what that felt like now. But I remember the lesson, that loving me means accepting all of me, the power, the danger, the darkness. I won't change, Emma. I can't. This is who I am. Emma placed her hands over his, keeping his palm pressed to her cheek. I'm not asking you to change. I'm asking if you'll let me in. All the way. Not just these careful dinners and protected conversations. The real you. Vincent's thumb brushed across her lower lip, and Emma's breath caught. The real me is dangerous. I know. The real me has destroyed people who threatened what's mine. I know. The real me wants you so badly I can barely think straight, but I've been holding back because once I have you, Emma, I won't let go. Ever. Emma's heart hammered against her ribs. I know. Then you understand what you're asking for. Instead of answering, Emma rose on her toes and kissed him. For a heartbeat, Vincent froze in surprise. Then his control shattered. He pulled her against him with a desperation that bordered on fierce, kissing her back with an intensity that made her knees weak. His hands tangled in her hair, angling her head to deepen the kiss. Emma gripped his shoulders, holding on as the world tilted beneath her. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Vincent rested his forehead against hers. Emma? No second thoughts, she interrupted. No more careful distance. I want this. I want you. Vincent's laugh was shaky. You're going to destroy me. You know that? Good. Maybe we can destroy each other in the best way possible. He kissed her again, slower this time but no less intense. Emma melted against him, feeling the carefully maintained walls between them finally crumble. This was dangerous and reckless, and probably the worst decision she'd ever made. It was also the most alive she'd ever felt. Vincent pulled back slightly, his dark eyes searching hers. Stay tonight. Let me prove I can be gentle, that I can be what you need. You already are, Emma whispered. He led her through the penthouse to his bedroom, a space that was surprisingly tasteful, dominated by a massive bed and more windows overlooking the city. Emma's hands trembled slightly as Vincent unzipped her dress with careful reverence, like she was something precious. We don't have to do anything you're not ready for, he murmured against her neck. I'm ready, Emma assured him, turning in his arms. I've been ready since you looked at me in that alley like I was brave instead of foolish. They made love slowly, carefully, Vincent worshipping every inch of her skin like he was memorizing her. Emma had never felt so cherished, so completely seen. Afterwards, they lay tangled together, her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat gradually slow. I need to tell you something, Vincent said quietly, his fingers tracing patterns on her bare shoulder. Something I've never told anyone. Emma propped herself up on her elbow, looking down at him. What is it? The night you warned me about the ambush. That wasn't the first time the Castellanos tried to take me out. It was the third. The first 2 times, I dealt with the threats before they became problems. But they were getting closer, smarter, more coordinated. He paused, his jaw tightening. I was starting to think maybe it was time. Maybe I'd survived long enough, built enough, and it was time to let the cycle end with me. Emma's heart clenched. Vincent, then you handed me that napkin. This terrified girl who had absolutely no reason to care whether I lived or died risked everything to warn me. And suddenly, I wanted to live again. I wanted to see what happened next. I wanted to know who you were and why you'd do something so incredibly brave and foolish. He pulled her down for a gentle kiss. You saved my life in more ways than one, Emma Collins. Tears pricked Emma's eyes. I didn't know. I couldn't let you die without trying to warn you. I know. That's what makes it mean everything. They held each other in the darkness, the city lights casting shadows across the room. Emma knew this peace couldn't last forever. Vincent's world was built on violence and power, and eventually, that world would demand its due. But for tonight, wrapped in his arms, she let herself believe in impossible things. Like a crime lord who could be gentle, like a waitress who could be brave, like love that could survive in a world built on darkness. Emma was drifting toward sleep when Vincent's phone buzzed on the nightstand. He reached for it reluctantly, and Emma felt him stiffen beside her. What is it? She asked, suddenly wide awake. Vincent's expression had gone cold, the vulnerability from moments ago replaced by the dangerous mask he wore for the outside world. The Santoros made their move. They hit one of my warehouses an hour ago. Emma sat up, clutching the sheet to her chest. Is anyone hurt? My people handled it, but Emma. He turned to look at her, and she saw something in his eyes that terrified her more than any threat. They knew which warehouse to hit, which route my people would take, which exit would be unguarded for exactly 6 minutes during shift change. What does that mean? It means I have a traitor in my organization. Someone close enough to know operational details. Vincent's voice was deadly calm. Someone who's been feeding information to my enemies. Emma's blood ran cold as she remembered her brother. Tommy had been feeding information to someone too, before Vincent's people extracted him. Vincent, you don't think... I don't know what to think yet. But I need to handle this. Now. He stood, pulling on his clothes with efficient movements. Sophia will stay with you until I get back. Don't leave the penthouse. How long will you be gone? Vincent cupped her face, pressing a hard kiss to her lips. As long as it takes to remind Chicago why they should fear the Moretti name. Then he was gone, leaving Emma alone in his massive bed, wrapped in sheets that smelled like him, wondering if the man who'd just made love to her so tenderly was the same man who was about to do things she didn't want to imagine. She pulled the sheets closer and stared out at the city, watching her fairy tale collide with reality, and prayed they'd both survive what came next. Emma woke to find Sophia sitting in a chair by the bedroom door, scrolling through her phone with practiced casualness. The morning light streaming through the windows told Emma she'd slept longer than she'd intended. Mr. Moretti called an hour ago, Sophia said without looking up. He wanted to make sure you were comfortable. He'll be back this afternoon. Emma pulled on the shirt Vincent had discarded the night before, inhaling his scent from the fabric. What happened last night, after he left? Sophia's expression remained neutral. That's not my information to share, Miss Collins. But I can tell you that the immediate situation is contained. Contained. Such a sterile word for whatever violence had occurred in the dark hours while Emma slept in Vincent's bed. She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold despite the warm shirt. "Can I ask you something?" Emma said. "How long have you worked for Vincent?" 7 years. "Have you ever seen him like this? With someone?" Sophia finally looked up, her dark eyes assessing Emma carefully. "Never. Mr. Moretti has had companions, but he's never brought anyone to his home. He's never looked at anyone the way he looks at you." She paused. "It terrifies his inner circle, honestly." "Why?" "Because caring about someone makes you vulnerable. In our world, vulnerability is deadly." Sophia stood, smoothing her designer pantsuit. "But between you and me? I've never seen him happier. So whatever happens, whatever choices you make, know that you've given him something he thought he'd lost forever." "What's that?" "Hope." Before Emma could respond, her phone rang. An unknown number. She answered cautiously. "Hello?" "Emma Collins." The voice was male, smooth, with an accent she couldn't quite place. "We haven't been formally introduced, but I know a great deal about you." Emma's blood ran cold. "Who is this?" "My name is Marco Santoro. I believe you know my family has been having some disagreements with Mr. Moretti lately." Sophia was immediately alert, moving toward Emma with urgent hand signals. Emma put the phone on speaker. "What do you want?" Emma asked, proud that her voice didn't shake. "Just to talk. You see, I'm a reasonable man, Miss Collins. I don't believe in unnecessary violence, but your boyfriend has something that belongs to me, and I need it back. I don't know anything about Vincent's business." Marco's laugh was cold. "Of course you don't. You're just an innocent waitress who happened to catch the eye of Chicago's most dangerous crime lord. How romantic. How convenient. Get to the point." "The point, my dear, is that Vincent Moretti has been stealing from my family for months. Shipments, territories, opportunities that were rightfully ours. Last night's warehouse incident? That was just the beginning. But I'm willing to negotiate a peaceful resolution. Then negotiate with Vincent." "Oh, I plan to. But I wanted to speak with you first, to let you know that when the war between our families escalates, and it will escalate, you should think very carefully about which side you want to be on. Vincent's empire is built on sand, Miss Collins. One strong wind and it all comes crashing down." Emma's hands clenched into fists. "I'm not afraid of you." "You should be. But not for yourself. For Vincent. You see, men like him, men who've built their entire existence on being untouchable, they have a fatal weakness. They believe they're invincible, until someone proves they're not." His voice dropped lower. "Stay away from him, Emma. Walk away now while you still can. Because when I bring Vincent Moretti to his knees, I'd hate for you to be collateral damage." The line went dead. Emma stood frozen, the phone still clutched in her hand. Sophia was already typing rapidly on her own device, presumably alerting Vincent's security team. "He's trying to scare you," Sophia said firmly. "It's a tactic. The Santoros know they can't get to Mr. Moretti directly, so they target what he cares about." "It's working," Emma whispered. "I am scared." "Good. Fear keeps you alert. But don't let it make you run. That's what they want." Emma sank onto the bed, her legs suddenly weak. She'd known intellectually that being with Vincent meant danger. But having that danger call her directly, threaten her explicitly, made it horrifyingly real. The penthouse door opened, and Vincent strode in with the energy of a thunderstorm. His suit was different from the one he'd worn last night. He'd clearly gone home to change. But there was something in his eyes that hadn't been there before. Something cold and merciless. Then he saw Emma's face, and the coldness melted into concern. "What happened?" he demanded, crossing to her in 3 long strides. Sophia explained about the call while Emma sat silently, trying to process everything. Vincent listened with increasing tension, his jaw tightening with each word. When Sophia finished, Vincent knelt in front of Emma, taking her hands in his. "Look at me." Emma raised her eyes to his. "Marco Santoro is a coward who hides behind threats because he doesn't have the strength to challenge me directly. He called you because he's desperate. Because last night we didn't just stop his attack. We dismantled 3 months of his planning. He's losing, Emma. And desperate men make stupid choices. He said you've been stealing from his family." Vincent's expression hardened. "The Santoros have been trafficking through my territory without permission, without paying tribute, without respect. I've been taking back what's mine. That's not theft. That's business. Is there going to be a war?" "There's always a war, Emma. Sometimes it's loud and obvious. Sometimes it's quiet and political. But it's always happening." He cupped her face gently, the contrast between his tender touch and his harsh words jarring. "I need to know if you can handle this. If you can accept that my world means phone calls from enemies and security details and threats that are very, very real." Emma's mind raced. She could walk away. Vincent would let her go, would protect her even as she left. She could go back to her quiet life of 2 jobs and studio apartment and relative safety. But she'd also go back to being invisible, to surviving instead of living, to never feeling the way Vincent made her feel, seen, valued, cherished despite the danger. "I'm not going anywhere," Emma said firmly, "but I need you to promise me something. Anything. No more secrets. If there's a threat, I want to know. If something happens, I want to be told. I can't handle this if you're trying to protect me by keeping me in the dark." Vincent studied her face for a long moment. "Most women would want the opposite. They'd want me to shield them from the ugly reality. I'm not most women." His smile was fierce and proud. "No, you're absolutely not." He stood, pulling her up with him. "All right, no secrets. Starting with this. I'm moving you out of your apartment today. You'll stay here, where my security can protect you properly." "Vincent." "Non-negotiable, Emma. The Santoros know where you live. Knowing where you are and not being able to get to you because you're protected is the only thing that will keep them from trying something stupid." Emma wanted to argue, to insist on maintaining her independence. But she wasn't naive enough to think her studio apartment with its flimsy lock would protect her from a criminal organization. "Fine, but I'm keeping my jobs." "Emma?" "Non-negotiable," she echoed his words back at him. "I'm not going to be some kept woman who sits in a penthouse waiting for you. I need my own life, my own identity. If you can't accept that, then maybe this won't work after all." Vincent's jaw worked as he processed her ultimatum. Finally, he nodded. "You keep your jobs, but Sophia accompanies you to work and back. And if I tell you there's an active threat and you need to stay here, you listen. Deal?" "Deal." He pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. "You're the most stubborn woman I've ever met. You knew that when you sent the roses." "I did." He pressed a kiss to the top of her head. "I need to go deal with the Santoro situation. Marco's call this morning was his way of declaring war. I need to make sure he understands what that means." Emma pulled back to look at him. "What are you going to do?" Vincent's expression was unreadable. "What I have to do to keep you safe, to keep my people safe, to maintain order. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I can give you." He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, finally her lips. "I meant what I said last night, Emma. You've changed something in me, made me want to be better. But I can't be better if I'm dead or weak or destroyed. Sometimes being better means being worse first." Emma understood what he wasn't saying. He was going to hurt people. Maybe worse than hurt them. And he needed her to accept that without asking for details she couldn't handle knowing. "Just come back to me," she whispered. "Always." Vincent left with Sophia trailing behind him, leaving Emma alone in the massive penthouse that was now apparently her home. She walked to the windows, looking out at the city that seemed so different from this height. Down there, people lived normal lives, working, loving, struggling with ordinary problems. Up here, she was in a different world entirely. Her phone buzzed. A text from Vincent. "I'm having your things moved this afternoon. Make a list of anything you need." And Emma, "Thank you for staying." Emma smiled despite everything and sent back, "Thank you for letting me stay. Be safe." His response was immediate. "Always am. You're my reason now." The war came faster than anyone expected. 3 days after Marco Santoro's phone call, the Santoro family made their move. Not against Vincent directly, they weren't that stupid, but against his operations. Shipments disappeared. Allies suddenly became unavailable. Deals that had been solid for years collapsed overnight. Emma watched Vincent transform from the gentle lover she'd discovered into the crime lord Chicago feared. He worked 18-hour days, coordinating responses, shoring up alliances, preparing for whatever came next. When he came to bed, exhausted and tense, Emma held him and didn't ask questions. She kept her promise. She worked her shifts at Rossi's cafe with Sophia watching from a corner table. She went to the bar for her evening shifts with Marco, Vincent's bodyguard, not the Santoro, stationed at the door. People noticed. Whispers followed her everywhere. "That's Vincent Moretti's girl. Poor thing. Wonder how long she'll last. He'll get tired of her." They always do. Emma ignored them all. She'd made her choice. She was living with the consequences. On the 7th day of the escalating conflict, Vincent came home at 3 a.m. and found Emma awake, reading in the living room. She'd given up trying to sleep when he was out. Her mind wouldn't quiet until she knew he was safe. "You should be sleeping," he said. But there was warmth in his voice. "So should you." Emma set down her book. "How bad is it?" Vincent poured himself a whiskey, downing it in one swallow before answering. "The Santoros hit another warehouse tonight, but we were ready for them this time. They lost more men than we did." "You said lost. Does that mean—" "Yes." Vincent's voice was flat. "It means exactly what you think it means." Emma's stomach churned, but she forced herself to stay calm. "Are you okay?" "I didn't pull any triggers, if that's what you're asking, but I gave the orders. I made the calls. Men are dead because I decided they needed to be." He looked at her, and she saw the weight of those decisions in his eyes. "Does that horrify you?" "Yes," Emma said honestly. "But I understand why you did it. That doesn't make it okay, but I understand." Vincent crossed to her, kneeling beside her chair like he had that first morning. "I'm going to end this soon. The Santoros are losing ground, losing allies. One more push and they'll either surrender or be finished." "But Emma, that final push is going to be intense, violent. Things are going to happen that I can't take back." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that if you want to leave, this is the time. Before the worst of it happens. Before you're so deep in my world that you can't get out without consequences." Emma's hands trembled as she cupped his face. "Vincent Moretti, I love you." He froze, his eyes widening with shock. "What?" "I love you," Emma repeated, stronger this time. "I love the man who sends me good morning texts, who remembers how I take my coffee, who holds me like I'm precious, who's honest with me even when the truth is ugly. I love you, and I'm not leaving." Vincent pulled her from the chair into his arms, holding her so tightly it almost hurt. "Say it again. I love you. Again. I love you, Vincent. All of you. The gentle parts and the dangerous parts. The man you are and the man you're trying to be." He kissed her desperately, pouring everything he couldn't say into the contact. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, there were tears on his face. "I've never—" He started, then stopped, struggling with words. "No one has ever said that to me. Not my father, not Isabella, not anyone who knew what I really am." "Then they were fools," Emma said fiercely. "Because you're worth loving, Vincent. Even when you make terrible choices. Even when you do things I wish you didn't have to do. You're still worth loving. I don't deserve you." Probably not. But you're stuck with me anyway. Vincent laughed through his tears, and the sound was so beautiful Emma's heart ached. I love you too, Emma Collins. God help us both. But I love you more than I thought I was capable of loving anyone. They made love on the couch, urgent and desperate, clinging to each other like lifelines. Afterward, wrapped in throes and each other, Vincent told her the plan. Tomorrow night we're meeting with the Santoros, neutral ground, supervised by the Commission, the ruling families who maintain order in Chicago. Marco will either agree to terms or we settle this permanently. What kind of terms? Territory concessions, financial reparations, a promise to stay out of my operations. In exchange, I won't dismantle his family completely. And if he refuses? Vincent's expression hardened. Then there won't be a Santoro family anymore. Emma shivered despite the warmth of his body against hers. Can I ask you something? About your world? Anything. The Commission, the families who maintain order. Why don't they stop wars like this before they start? Because some conflicts are necessary. They keep the balance. If we didn't fight occasionally, if there were no consequences for disrespect or territory violations, everything would collapse into chaos. The Commission supervises to make sure wars don't escalate beyond control. But they don't prevent them entirely. It sounds exhausting. It is. Vincent's arms tightened around her. Which is why, when this is over, I'm making changes. What kind of changes? I'm stepping back. Not completely. I can't abandon my family or my responsibilities. But I'm promoting my underboss, Antonio, to handle day-to-day operations. I'll focus on strategy, on maintaining alliances, on the political side of things instead of the operational side. Emma pulled back to look at him. Why? Because I want a life with you, a real life. Not stolen moments between crises. I want to take you to dinner without bodyguards. I want to wake up next to you without wondering if today's the day everything falls apart. I want to be the man you see when you look at me, not just the title I inherited. Vincent, you don't have to. Yes, I do. You've shown me what I've been missing, Emma. What I sacrificed without even realizing it. I can't get back the man I was before all this. But maybe I can become someone better. Someone worthy of your love. Emma's tears fell freely now. You're already worthy. You always have been. They held each other as the city lights flickered outside, making promises they both hoped they could keep. The next evening, Emma waited in the penthouse while Vincent attended the meeting with the Santoros. Sophia stayed with her, pretending to work on her laptop while Emma paced anxiously. Hours passed. Emma's phone remained silent. Finally, at midnight, the door opened. Vincent walked in, and Emma knew immediately that something was wrong. He moved like he was injured, though she couldn't see any visible wounds. What happened? She demanded, rushing to him. Vincent pulled her into his arms, his face buried in her hair. It's over. The Santoros agreed to terms. There won't be any more attacks. Then why do you look like your world just ended? Because of the price. Vincent pulled back, his eyes haunted. Marco agreed to everything. Territory, money, operations. But he had one condition. One thing he demanded in exchange for peace. Emma's blood ran cold. What condition? You. He wanted me to give you up. Said that as long as you were in my life, he'd always have a target. A weakness he could exploit. He'd agree to peace if I agreed to end things with you. Emma's legs nearly gave out. And what did you say? Vincent's smile was bitter and beautiful. I told him he could burn in hell, that I'd destroy his entire family before I gave you up, that you were mine, and I was yours, and nothing, not territory, not peace, not all the power in Chicago, was worth losing you. Vincent. Then I offered him something else, something that cost me more than anything I've ever given up. His voice cracked slightly. I offered him the docks. 5 miles of waterfront property that's been Moretti territory for 3 generations, the most valuable real estate in my empire. Emma gasped. Vincent, no, you can't. I can, and I did. The commission witnessed it. The deal is done. He cupped her face, his touch infinitely gentle. Antonio told me I was insane, that I was showing weakness, that giving up the docks would cost me respect and power and everything I'd built. But Emma, I don't care. Let them think I'm weak. Let them question my judgment. Because none of it, none of the power, none of the territory, none of the reputation, means anything without you. Emma's tears flowed freely. You gave up your empire for me. I gave up a piece of it, and I'd give up the rest too if I had to. Vincent pressed his forehead to hers. You saved my life once. Now you've given me a reason to live it. That's worth more than all the docks in Chicago. I love you, Emma whispered. So much it terrifies me. Good. Be terrified together. He kissed her softly. The war is over, Emma. The Santoros got their territory. I kept you. And now we get to see if we can actually build something real. What about your family, your organization? Will they forgive you for this? Vincent's laugh was shaky. Some will, some won't. But that's tomorrow's problem. Tonight, I just want to hold the woman I love and be grateful we both survived this. They went to bed early, exhausted from the emotional toll of the past week. Emma lay in Vincent's arms, listening to his heartbeat, and marveled at the fact that she was alive. He was alive, and somehow, impossibly, they'd made it through. Emma? Vincent murmured in the darkness. Yeah? Marry me. Emma's breath caught. What? Marry me, he repeated, more awake now. I know it's crazy. I know we haven't been together that long. But I've never been more certain of anything in my life. I want you to be my wife. I want to build a life with you. I want everyone to know that you're mine and I'm yours, and nothing will ever change that. Emma pushed herself up on her elbow, looking down at him in the dim light. Vincent Moretti, are you seriously proposing to me in bed at 2 a.m. after the most stressful week of our lives? Yes, is that a problem? Emma laughed through her tears. It's the most you thing you've ever done. Is that a yes? It's a yes, Emma said, kissing him deeply. Yes, I'll marry you. Yes, I'll be your wife. Yes, to all of it. Vincent rolled them over, pinning her beneath him with a grin that made him look years younger. I don't have a ring yet. I'll take you shopping tomorrow. I don't need a ring. You're getting one anyway. Something beautiful and expensive and completely impractical, just like this whole relationship. Emma pulled him down for another kiss. I love you, you impossible, dangerous, wonderful man. I love you too, my brave, stubborn, perfect Emma. They made love slowly, savoring each touch, each kiss, each whispered promise. And for the first time since this all began, Emma felt truly safe. Not because the danger was gone, it would always be there, lurking at the edges of Vincent's world, but because they'd faced the worst together and survived. Everything else was just details. 6 months later, Emma stood in front of the mirror in Vincent's, their bedroom, adjusting the simple white dress she'd chosen for their wedding. It wasn't a traditional ceremony. Neither of them wanted the spectacle of a big wedding with hundreds of guests who belonged to Vincent's world more than hers. Instead, they'd planned something small and private. Just immediate family, which for Vincent meant Antonio and a few key members of his inner circle, and for Emma meant her brother Tommy, who'd flown in from Arizona looking healthy and happy and clean. You look beautiful, Sophia said, adjusting Emma's veil. Over the past months, Sophia had become more than just a bodyguard. She'd become a friend, one of the few people who understood both worlds Emma now straddled. I look nervous, Emma corrected. You're allowed to be nervous. You're marrying the most powerful crime lord in Chicago. I'm marrying Vincent, Emma said firmly. The title is just accessory. Sophia smiled. He's lucky to have you. We all are. You've made him better, you know. More reasonable, less volatile. The families have noticed. Some respect it. Others think it makes him weak. And what do you think? I think love isn't weakness. I think choosing something, someone, Over power is the bravest thing a man like Vincent can do. Sophia squeezed Emma's hand. You're good for him, for all of us. A knock on the door interrupted them. Tommy peeked his head in, looking uncomfortable in his rental tux. Hey, Em. Can I talk to you for a minute? Sophia excused herself, leaving the siblings alone. Tommy approached slowly, his hands shoved in his pockets. You look great, he said awkwardly. Thanks. You too. Arizona's been good for you. Yeah. Clean livin', honest work, no looking over my shoulder constantly. He paused. I owe you an apology. For everything. For getting involved with the Castellanos. For putting you in danger. For making you think you had to save Vincent Moretti to save me. Emma crossed to him, taking his hands. Tommy, you're my brother. I'd do it again in a heartbeat. I know. That's what terrifies me. His eyes filled with tears. But I'm grateful too. Because if you hadn't made that crazy decision, I'd probably be dead right now. Or worse. And you wouldn't have found him, happiness. Are you okay with this? With me marrying Vincent? Tommy was quiet for a moment. Honestly? It scares me. Because I know what that world is like. I know the danger, the violence, the constant threat. But I also see how he looks at you. Like you're the only real thing in his entire life. Like he'd burn the city down before he'd let anything happen to you. So yeah, I'm okay with it. Because you love him. And he loves you. And that's worth any risk. Emma hugged her brother tightly, tears threatening to ruin her makeup. Thank you. For being here. For supporting this. For being the brother I needed you to be. Always, Em. No matter what. Another knock, this time more insistent. Antonio appeared, looking uncharacteristically nervous. Miss Collins, Emma, we're ready whenever you are. Emma took a deep breath, gave Tommy one more squeeze, and nodded. Let's do this. The ceremony was held in the penthouse, the floor-to-ceiling windows offering a breathtaking view of Chicago at sunset. Vincent stood at the makeshift altar, really just a space cleared near the windows, looking devastating in a black tuxedo that made him seem like he'd stepped out of a movie. His eyes locked on Emma the moment she appeared, and she saw everything there. Love, gratitude, wonder, and something that looked suspiciously like tears. Emma walked down the short aisle, alone. Tommy had offered to give her away, but Emma wanted to come to Vincent on her own terms, making her own choice, taking her own steps into this new life. When she reached him, Vincent took her hands, and Emma could feel them trembling slightly. This man who commanded respect through fear, who made grown men quiver with a look, was shaking because he was marrying a waitress who'd handed him a napkin 6 months ago. The officiant was someone from the commission, a neutral party who could witness the union and make it official in both the legal world and the underground one. He spoke about partnership and trust and choosing each other every day. Then it was time for vows. Vincent went first, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. Emma, 6 months ago, you did something crazy. You handed a stranger a warning that could have gotten you killed. You saved my life that night. But more than that, you saved me. You made me remember there was more to life than power and territory and survival. You made me want to be better. Not perfect. I'll never be that. But better. Worthy of the love you give me so freely. I promise to protect you with everything I am. To be honest with you even when the truth is ugly. To choose you over everything else, every single time. You're my home, Emma Collins. And I will love you until my last breath. Emma was crying openly now, not caring about her makeup. She took a shaky breath and began her own vows. Vincent, I was terrified when I handed you that napkin. Terrified you wouldn't believe me. Terrified you'd hurt me. Terrified I was making a mistake that would ruin everything. But the biggest fear was that I'd do nothing, and you'd die. And I'd spend the rest of my life wondering what might have happened. You've taught me to be brave. To choose the dangerous path if it's the right one. To believe that love can exist even in dark places. I promise to see all of you, the crime lord and the man, the power and the vulnerability, to stand beside you when things are good and refuse to leave when they're bad, to be your safe place, your honest voice, your reason to keep fighting. I love you, Vincent Moretti, today and every day after." The officiant pronounced them married, and Vincent pulled Emma into a kiss that made everyone in the room very aware they should probably look away. But no one did. They were too busy witnessing something rare and precious in a world built on violence and power. Love that was real, pure, transformative. The reception was small but beautiful. Antonio made a toast about how Vincent had finally found someone who could tell him no and make it stick. Tommy told embarrassing stories about Emma as a kid. Sophia surprised everyone by singing. She had a beautiful voice, and the entire room fell silent to listen. At one point, Emma and Vincent escaped to the balcony, needing a moment alone. The city sparkled beneath them, and Emma marveled at how different her life was from a year ago. She'd been surviving then, working 2 jobs and barely scraping by. Now she was married to one of the most powerful men in Chicago, living in a penthouse that cost more than she'd ever imagined. But the strangest part? She was happy. Genuinely, deeply happy. "What are you thinking?" Vincent asked, pulling her against his chest. "That I made a lot of crazy decisions to get here, but I don't regret any of them. Not even the ones that involved criminal organizations and territory wars. Especially those." Emma turned in his arms to face him. "You know what the weirdest part is? I don't miss my old life. I thought I would. I thought I'd miss the simplicity, the safety of being invisible. But I don't. Because being seen by you, loved by you, chosen by you, that's worth every complicated, dangerous moment." Vincent's smile was soft. "You know I'm still not a good man, right? I still run a criminal organization. I still make choices that would horrify normal people. Today doesn't change that. I know. But you're my not good man, and I wouldn't want you any other way." He kissed her gently. "I have something for you. A wedding present." Emma raised her eyebrows. "You already gave me a ring that costs more than a car." "This is different." Vincent pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. "Open it." Inside was a deed. Emma scanned the document, her eyes widening. "Vincent, this is the deed to Rossi's Cafe. I bought it last month. It's yours now. Run it however you want. Keep working there, hire a manager, sell it, whatever you choose. But I wanted you to have something that's completely yours. Something in your name that has nothing to do with me or my world." Emma's hands trembled as she stared at the document. "I don't know what to say. Say you'll keep surprising me. Keep challenging me. Keep making me want to be better." Vincent cupped her face. "You gave up a lot to be with me, Emma. I wanted to give you something back. Something that represents the woman you are. Strong, independent, capable of building something beautiful." "I love you so much," Emma whispered. "How did I get so lucky?" "I ask myself that every day." He pressed his forehead to hers. "You could have walked away so many times. After the Santoro threats. After I told you what I really do. After you saw the worst of my world. But you stayed. You chose me. That's the real gift, Emma. Your choice. Every day you choose me. And I'll keep choosing you," Emma promised. "For the rest of our lives." They stood on the balcony, wrapped in each other's arms, as the party continued inside. The commission representative left, giving Vincent a respectful nod that acknowledged the new alliance this marriage represented. Antonio pulled Tommy aside, and Emma smiled watching her brother laugh at something Vincent's underboss said. Sophia was dancing with Marco, and Emma made a mental note to investigate that development later. This was her life now. Straddling 2 worlds, the normal one where she owned a cafe and had friends and lived like a regular person, and the dangerous one where her husband commanded respect through power and their home needed bodyguards and threats were always lurking. But somehow, impossibly, she'd found balance. She still worked at Rossi's, her cafe now, 3 days a week. She'd quit the bar, finally free from the exhaustion of 2 jobs. She'd started taking business classes online, learning how to actually run the cafe as a proper owner instead of just an employee. Vincent had kept his promise too. Antonio handled day-to-day operations while Vincent focused on strategy and politics. He was home more. They had dinners together. They took a weekend trip to a cabin upstate where no one knew who Vincent Moretti was, and they could pretend to be a normal couple. It wasn't perfect. Vincent still had to deal with occasional conflicts. Emma still had to live with security measures and whispered conversations she wasn't supposed to hear. But it was theirs. They'd built it together from a napkin and a warning and a chance encounter that had changed both their lives. "Ready to go back in?" Vincent asked eventually. "One more minute," Emma said, holding him tighter. "I just want to remember this moment, this feeling, this perfect night where everything came together. We'll have 1,000 more nights like this," Vincent promised. "I know, but this one is special. This is the night I officially became Mrs. Moretti. The night we promised forever in front of everyone who matters. The night our two worlds finally merged completely." Vincent kissed the top of her head. "Then let's make it count." They returned to the party, hand in hand. Tommy pulled Emma onto the makeshift dance floor, spinning her around while Vincent watched with amusement. Antonio cornered Vincent to discuss some business matter, but Vincent waved him off. Tonight was about celebrating, not working. As the night wore on and guests began to leave, Emma found herself back in Vincent's arms, swaying to soft music while the city lights glittered outside their windows. "No regrets?" Vincent murmured against her hair. "Not a single one. Not even about the scary crime lord husband?" Emma pulled back to look at him, seeing the vulnerability beneath the teasing. "Especially not about him. Because he's not scary to me. He's just Vincent, the man who sends me good morning texts, who remembers my coffee order, who gave up waterfront property to keep me safe, who holds me like I'm the most precious thing in his world." "You are the most precious thing in my world," Vincent said seriously. "You and this life we're building. It's worth more than any empire." "I love you, Vincent Moretti." "I love you too, Emma Moretti." He smiled at her new name. "That sounds perfect." "It does, doesn't it?" They danced until the last guest left, until the caterers cleaned up and departed, until it was just the two of them in their penthouse with the city at their feet. Vincent carried Emma to their bedroom despite her laughing protests, laying her gently on the bed like she was made of glass. "Welcome to forever, Mrs. Moretti," he said, sliding the veil from her hair. "Best decision I ever made," Emma replied, pulling him down to her. They made love as husband and wife for the first time, tender and passionate and perfect. And when Emma finally fell asleep in Vincent's arms, she dreamed not of danger or threats or the complicated world she'd married into. She dreamed of napkins and coffee cups and white roses, of the moment her life changed forever because she'd been brave enough to hand a stranger a warning, of the impossible love story that had bloomed from that single act of courage. She dreamed of home. And Vincent, watching her sleep with wonder in his eyes, knew he'd finally found his. The crime lord and the waitress, the powerful and the brave. Two people who should never have worked but somehow found their way to each other anyway. This was their happily ever after. Complicated, dangerous, imperfect, and absolutely real. Just like the love that had started it all. Thank you for reading The Secret Note. If you enjoyed Vincent and Emma's story, please like this video and comment below with your favorite moment. Should we create more Mafia romance stories? Let us know. Subscribe for more intense love stories where danger meets devotion.